you not as an outsider. I see this as a challenge that I feel in my own society and that I see played out in European societies, and that's the challenge we all face. Thank you very much.
Grazie, come dicevo abbiamo il tempo.
Thank you. Now some time for very short questions, provided that it is a question and not a statement. Before leaving the floor to you, I would like to leave the floor to Professor Michalski, who would like to add something.
Just a small remark, because of a difference you may notice between Professor Taylor and Professor Reale. Would you agree, if I understood you correctly, then one could say, from the point of view you developed, that the religion, Christianity, or in general European culture, is an important resource for the society we live in particular for solidarity necessary for the society, but first, not only resource, and most of all, not a norm. So it is not a norm a society can be based on, right? The norms are actually laws. This is the regulation of how people can live together. Cannot be these rules, these norms cannot be based on a truth which is already given. It does not mean that truth is not important. On the contrary, this is fundamentally important, and yet it is not a sufficient basis for a society, in particular, if society where all individuals are free and equal, to be sustained. So culture, European culture, in particular religion and in particular Christianity, a resource and not the only one, but not a norm. And then a resource, and this is the second point, in a very important matter, namely which is necessary. I mean, a feature, a feature which is necessary for us to survive is survive the culture, the European culture to survive, is this openness to others. Now, it is what Adam Michnik spoke about, a particular danger for Christianity is to become too identified with a particular community, a particular nation, or a particular strain of tradition, right? Like it is sometimes in Poland, sometimes maybe in other countries, but Poland is better known to us than others, right? Now, religion usually, or Christianity, had a function to lift, so to say, a pole to a human being, meaning to make us not only poles or members of any particular community, but also the neighbors of others, right? So to universalize, right? To open to whatever comes, to unexpected, right? Now, if it is too nationalized, I mean, if this difference disappears between a particular national or other identity and religion, then the very foundation of the let's say a condition of possibility, rather, of survival will be undermined, right? So.
Grazie. Le domande sono una qui, una là in fondo, una qua davanti.
I'd like to link back to this issue of religious plurality, because if we read your title, Religion in the Public Space, I wondered whether if we could use religions instead of religion. This is what Charles Taylor wrote in his latest book. Also, Jose Casanova wrote the secularization model, the winning one of the US, is the outcome of a training to religious plurality. But in our case, within the context of countries that identify the religion with just one denomination, wouldn't it be difficult to speak of a religious plurality when these religions are deeply different? Is this a difficult lesson to learn within the European context, or would it be easy to inject a religious plurality in Europe? The concept of solidarity was clarified. I'd like to ask also a definition of reciprocity.
I will speak in Polish. I'm not going to give you a sermon, but I'd like to tell you something about a certain project that is being implemented in Poland. Joanna Rajkowska, a Polish artist, is working on a project called Minaret, a mosque. In Poznań, there's a cathedral across the river, and on the other bank of the river there is a synagogue. There used to be the largest synagogue built by the Jewish people in Poland before World War I, and during World War II it was turned into a swimming pool, by the way. And until today it has been performing its function even though the Jewish community has taken over the building. There is a chimney between the two buildings, and Ms. Rajkowska wants to turn this particular chimney into a mosque. She wants to alleviate some of the tensions. Well, what she calls a minaret is not really a temple in the strict sense of the word. It's a cultural project. I don't know if this project is going to be implemented. It has its own history, and I'm not going to tell you a lot about the difficulties that it has overcome, financial and cultural difficulties that had to be overcome. But what I like to relate to is what Professor Charles Taylor has spoken, that is the redefinition of solidarity, and also what Primary Amato says, that is to say, of this amnesia, so to say. Now, my question is whether this point of view, that is when we try to ask questions, formulate questions, and when we are performing acupuncture over social problems, whether this can be perceived as a dialogue with traditions. And now comes the key question. The Congress of European Culture in Wrocław, to take place in September 2011, has a couple of theses or themes. And I think the major theme of this very important artistic festival is going to be art as a social change. My question is whether art in any way, that is to say the critical art in Poland, which is very, very strong in Poland, whether it can in any way or to any degree change or have impact upon how the society is going to look at different religious traditions and cultural traditions. That is an open question, but the question that the project is alluding to is whether the stranger is your enemy or whether he or she is your neighbor. That's the question. Thank you.
We actually have no more time for questions, just a few minutes for the replies. I leave the floor to Mr. Amato first. Just 1 minute, because otherwise I miss my plane. I have a few things to say. It is true that we are only focused on one religion with a bit of Judaism, which is not welcome. But this is part of the previous history of Europe. This is post-Westphalia. This is the order of the states. This is not the history of Europe. It is a matter of understanding whether 3 centuries of history